got a problem, LiDAR is probably not the best answer. There's some bathymetric drones and other things that make more sense. But so the answer is you really can. If there's water in it, you can, all the way at the bottom, and even then some with a drained reservoir.
Thank you.
So perfect segue. Let's go ahead and get started. So thank you to everybody who is here and who might be listening after we record this. This is one of our most exciting webinars that we've had with Chuck Adamas from One Up Drones. So he's going to talk to us today about his work and kind of what he does. So it'll be super exciting. Thanks for coming, Chuck.
My pleasure. This is an awesome group. And like I said, back out in Palisade in, what was it, February? Is that right?
Yep.
Y'all are the salt of the earth, and it's fun just being part of this group and being a sponsor of this group and getting to know everybody over the last few years. So thank you very much for the time. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. And hopefully this all works like we tested earlier this week.
Oh, I'm sure it will. It'll be great.
Okay, here we go. So we minimize this over here. If there's questions, just if you would put them into the chat room and I'll do my best to answer them. Or feel free to speak up. This is kind of a small crowd, so don't mind taking them on the fly, and I'll try and take enough breaths to make it where it's a little bit more interactive. So the title of this is Drones and Water Do Mix, Part 2, because we did do a similar presentation. In fact, there's a couple of slides from February that I wanted to throw back in here just as a reminder. But Part 2. Here we go. Let's do this then. What I wanted to do was cover just a quick industry update. There's 2 slides on that, just to show kind of the growth and where we're seeing a lot of activity. As I mentioned to Manny just a few minutes ago, we just wrapped up yesterday. We still have to upload all the data. About a 500-acre plot of land down in Delta, Colorado, with the Gunnison River going right through the middle of it. Not exactly sure what they're going to be using it for, but it was absolutely beautiful. And that's the kind of stuff. So I want to talk a little bit about the industry. Some of the use cases since February, there's a couple that we've actually done for DARCA connected companies, the Applegate Group, the Chevron Rick Cross at the Chevron Ranch, which the customer was Karis Oil and Gas, but talk to you a little bit about that and how drones are being used. And then show you, it wasn't a DARCA presentation, but show you just an example of the power of drones and some of the analysis we can do, topographic, working with surveyors, topographical data, vegetation analysis, and so forth. And then finish up with a couple of slides that Craig Ullman and I created back for the February presentation that we did on the tunnel, the fruit and irrigation tunnel work that's been going on and kind of the remediation and repair of that. So drones on duty. This is a prediction. It's not Chuck's prediction. It's you can see the credits there from I believe it was a METAR group, but there's about a 14% compounded annual growth rate between now and 2025 is what they're predicting. So it's about a $43 billion business, essentially between now and what this slide says is between now and 2025, the industry is going to double. Drones are not going away. They're, at first, when we first started talking, they were kind of a fad, and now they're becoming part of business operations and really good decision and data analytic type tools. The application in terms of industries in 2019, I'm sorry, it was Mordar Intelligence was the name of the group that had that prediction on the last slide. But you can see there that the slice for construction, agriculture, energy, construction, agriculture, and other applications are really growing. I will tell you, law enforcement and first responders are also really growing. We've done some work with South Metro Fire here in the Denver area, and some other groups across the country. Up in Chicago, some railroad police for if you're riding the Chicago rail lines. We've sold a bunch of drones to them as well. The Metro Railroad up there. So breaking it down just a little bit further, agriculture in general, and kind of where I would put DARCA is agriculture, construction. That would be, two of the largest areas, representing about 1.4 billion for ag and 1.3 billion for construction area. So a personal, just a little promotion of one-up. Just a reminder to everybody, if you don't know us, what we do is we sell drones. We provide drone services, and that's kind of the majority of the business that we do. Work closely in training, development, and provide expert consultation. We've trained a number of news crews, one most recently from Wichita, Kansas, coming in, 3 photojournalists, and provide typically 2 or 3 training courses every month for folks across the country coming in to visit with us. And then finally, if you have critical infrastructure, if you have dams or something that you want to protect, not a huge part of our business, but it is drawing some interest, is we can provide solutions that protect the airspace around your business or property, dams included, through the detection of drones. And I've got one quick slide at the very end just to touch on that. So I wanted to provide, that's kind of the industry background. I wanted to provide some background on 3 projects that in particular, I think, or actually 4 projects that in particular that I think you'll find of interest. And this is a summary of them on this slide. We did about 1,600 acres down in Ridgway, Colorado, between Montrose and Ouray, on some wildfire mitigation, some land development. Huge project, took about a week. On 4-wheelers, we look like raccoons when we come out every day because of the dust and dirt. But it was a blast just seeing the land and spending time out there and capturing the data that this customer happened to be an engineer and a surveyor required. Can't see it up here because it says talking Chuck Adamas, but there was an environmental impact analysis, and I'll show you some slides of this that we did with Rick from Chevron, and some of the tools that he used to assess, is this a problem for us or is it not? And then finally, 2 others, pipeline inspection inside. We now have drones that can actually go inside of pipes and down into wells and other things to do some inspection, both thermal and regular RGB cameras. I think the point of this is you guys have been a great supporter of my company. We're really at the very early stages of this, and we've been talking now, Mandy and I were talking before this started, probably about 3 years, and he saw the impact of what drones could do. But we're still in the very infancy of what they're going to be able to do and how proliferated they will be going into businesses and so forth. We are in a state of transition. There's a lot of regulations, there's a lot of laws, there's a lot of local things that we need to start paying attention to. But I think if we do it right, the opportunity is going to be endless for all of us, for you as Ditch and River Company Alliance folks, as well as one-up and other companies that are there to support us. So far, so good. Any questions out there that I need to answer? All right, I'm going to keep blowing through this. This is the drone we use for inside of pipelines. Border Patrol is starting to pick it up, looking into canals and tunnels and things like that. First responders are beginning to look at it in terms of sending it in without sending law enforcement in. In this case, we started to use it as an example with Craig Ullman at the Applegate Group, and I'll just pull this up. Hopefully that switched over the slide. It Did that switch there, Amanda? Amy?
You're good to go so far.
So you can see it.
Yep.
Just to show you, I'm not going to run through this whole thing, but this was a 1,670-foot tunnel. Pitch black, bats, reptiles. But what we were looking for was a condition of what are we dealing with in the repair remediation of this. I will tell you, I was not 3 feet, and this tunnel in some places, like coming up right here, is about 3 feet in length or in height. I think you get the idea. So what we were tasked to do, just switching back here, is to do a laser scan of there was 2 tunnels out on the Fruitland irrigation with the Applegate group. One was about 1,600 feet long, 1,700 feet long. The other one's about 2,600 feet long. And we did a static scan taking LiDAR inside of the tunnel. So that video that you just saw there was just one other piece to that. We have a whole complete 3D model that was built for the reconstruction of the tunnel and the work that they're doing there. But the video itself, Craig will tell you, I believe, that it gives the guys that are bidding on the project precise information of what they're going to be looking at and dealing with as they get into this. So besides the 3D scan that they'll use for the re-engineering of it, the video itself was very helpful to look and see, where is their support today, where does it need to be, and a lot of the ore and different things, conditions of the tunnels themselves. Second one that I wanted to show you was, I call it Mount Sniffles. It was down by Mount Sniffles, actually just outside of Ridgway, Colorado, about 1,600 acres, topo and vegetation analysis. And I'll show you just a brief video of that. There's no fun sound with this one, so I'll kind of speed through just to give you an idea. This was the whole 1,600 acres. If you all don't tell anybody, that was Tyler Perry's ranch that he just bought. Famous actor, Medea's Family Reunion, and other movies. Looking at where do they work on some of the wildfire mitigation, and where can they put ranch houses, where they put main houses, and so forth that's going to be developed there. So you can see the contours of what we had to deal with. And as you might imagine, surveying that in a traditional way would take months, if not years, to complete. This was completed in about a week's time. And we had the data uploaded, working with the engineer, and the analysis done about 2 weeks' time after it was delivered. I'm going to zip through so we don't just continue to see raw land, but you'll see some of the analysis that they did with this. Right here. So here they're looking at vegetation heights, and they took the trees and applied some filters to it. So this is indication of what we've got. And here they're looking at the vegetation species, ponderosas, junipers, oaks, etc. And then the tree health at a macro level, what red was stressed, blue is healthy. I guess green means good as well. And then it backs to the topos again. So, all right. And then finally, really cool, really neat use of of drones and creative use that this came out of the February conference. Rick Cross pulled me aside when I went out and took the picture of everybody and said, I think we've got a project for you and like to talk to you. And we did. We followed up on it from there. But it was an unfortunate incident that happened on part of their land just north of Parachute. And it was a truck accident. Basically, the truck left the road right here, and you can see when I show you the images here shortly, it's amazing that this gentleman survived. The driver of the truck actually got tossed out of the truck at about 800 feet down the cliff. He walks up somehow, I have no idea how, with broken ribs, spleen, severe injuries, got out of there. And where the truck ended is right up in here, and I'll show you some images here shortly. But that was the approximate position where the truck rested. What they wanted to look at was there any oil and gas seepage? What's the environmental impact? You know, Chevron's a very conscientious company. They wanted to see and just make sure that what they were dealing with was not affecting the environment. Severe terrain and huge safety risks for anybody getting down in there. The ground is not stable. Weren't sure at the time if the truck was stable. And then finally, should they extract the vehicle, or you know, is it at risk? And then how in the heck are we going to get it out of there if we are to extract it? Probably the only way would be through helicopter. So I'm going to show you this. It's already loaded over here. We'll just go here. So this is the territory that we were dealing with. And as you look down over from above, if you remember the slide, these were the roads that kind of wrapped around the ridge of it. I was actually flying the drone. You'll see right there some little cars kind of right at the edge. So you think about it, this gentleman went down the cliff, and the truck, sorry if this is making you dizzy, is actually right down there. If I hone in on it just a little bit here, you can see it barely right in through there. That's as far as it's gonna go, but we have some very close-up videos within about 50 feet of the truck, just to look to see, was there oil and gas leaking out? Was there anything that needed to be concerned of? So you see the beautiful country that we live in. But that's a huge testimonial and a big power to what drones are capable of without putting humans at risk. You can see the town down at the bottom there. So switch back over here. And there is a little bit of a closer up picture of the actual damaged truck. There was, I believe that's a culvert that fell out of the bed of the truck, or it was down there from before. But some of the mangled mess that they wanted to take a close look at, that we got in very close with some high-powered cameras and drones. I must admit I was a bit concerned with this one myself. Looking over the edge, it's quite daunting, and flying the drone without being able to see it real closely was not a comfortable feeling. So, and finally, this was a project we did excuse me, back in 2019. I believe it was in November, late fall of 2019, near Crawford, Colorado. About 5,000 acres of irrigation out there in the Fruitland Mesa. And there was a bunch of grants and drones, but we were to use LiDAR on a drone and fly about 12 miles of canal and then 2 tunnel sections. And that video I showed you earlier was the follow-on work that we did in 2020 on the tunnel sections. So we must have done something right on the first group, because Craig called us back and said, want you for the the second piece. The goal, sorry, back up. The goal was to get them 7 CFS more in prevention of seepage losses and extend some of the irrigation time by about 2 weeks a year. This is the drone that we used. This is what we used again this week. It's called an M600. There's a Phoenix Regal LiDAR on the bottom. The cost of that is around the cost of a small house, about $250,000, but it's extremely precise. What happens is this drone uses an autonomous grid pattern that we set it up and fly. We put down base stations like this, or control stations like this. And then the drone captures the data with a little mirror and a camera right next to it. But the mirror is key for the LiDAR. Basically, it's revolving around 100,000 times per second, shooting lasers down at the ground. And there's a solid state disk that's capturing these laser points and recording the data as it flies across. So it's extremely precise. The ultimate delivery is either a DXF file or a point cloud, typically, when we're working with the engineers and surveyors. This was a picture of the ground station. This area was about no more than 800 feet wide in most areas, between a valley and in between a couple of mountains. But the safety, the risk, the animals just in general, bears, mountain lions, stuff like that, the risks to surveyors doing it traditional methods would have been great. And we worked very closely with, excuse me, the surveyor, Chris Crawford from Wilmore and Company on this project, along with the Applegate group in collecting of the data. Chris was extremely helpful in taking us around the land, shooting the ground control points. That right there is what's called a ground control point. So we tie the earth back into, he shoots that with traditional survey, and we tie it back into the state plane, or the plane that we're working with. But with all of this, the precision, the amount of data, we think we got a couple of things. One is we did it in about 50% less time at about 25% less cost. And the precision ultimately equals more accurate canal rehabilitation estimates, less membrane, less shotcrete, et cetera, with what we did. Just a quick, I took this slide out initially, but I wanted to touch on it real quick. This is the area that we were in. So the Gould Reservoir is right here. Highway 92 is right here. And the launch points were each one of the black circles. So you'll see some turnouts there. You'll see the tunnel sections indicated in purple. And the access was not like you could just park your car on the side of the road like we had this week. It was Chris Crawford helping us with his four-wheeler, working with ranchers, working with the landowners, getting us access to these launch points. And what we would do would be start here, for example, fly some up this way, fly some back that way, then come back and land in the middle, so that we minimize the amount of time on one end or another, and be able to see. It's important. The FAA has rules around visual line of sight. Being able to see those drones in the air is very important. The safety and risk of that, and obviously not wanting to lose the small house that's in the air, is important to us. So this was not from the actual canal. It's a picture of another one, but that's what they were. That's what ultimately they will have out there. In fact, I think they do now. When we were out there doing the tunnels, most of this was completed. It's to be lined with geomembranes and shotcrete, and with the data, as I said, the amount of data that we provided, it provided less shotcrete, less membranes, and more accuracy working with the contractors. Quick shot of the engineering diagram. So the black dots are representative of what the drone collected. So if you're looking at this, this is a cross section of the canal itself. The purple is the re-engineering. This is what the Applegate Group and others recommended that they do to it to get the extra 7 CFS and the extra 2 weeks of irrigation. And you can see some of the, I'm not an engineer, so you probably are more familiar with this, but there's a lot of numbers behind all of this. And then just a quick shot of the actual remediation. We did a quick fly through. It's kind of neat. Let's stop there for just a second. I want to point out each one of these points are basically what the laser has connected or collected. You think about a traditional survey, and they're very important to us, and working with surveyors is extremely critical to our success. But for Chris Crawford, he'll admit this, for him to do this, it would be every 100 feet, he would be taking, the shots and providing the information and the data behind it. We're collecting it basically every couple of feet that the drone flies. We're collecting that data, and these are the points that they're getting. So the amount of data, just beware. A couple of things. One is your engineers, the people are on this call, you're going to get a lot of data. The bad news is you get a lot of data because it's a great tool to be able to measure the canal. You see kind of rough terrain, a lot of trees. Here you go. Let me stop that before it does the American Furniture commercial. Close that one out. There we go, back over. And finally, as I just mentioned, this is the way we view the world. We do sell drones, but it's our job to essentially gather the data. We own the drones, we're insured, we're licensed. This is what we do day in and day out. Contrary to some of the inspectors, adjusters, architects, surveyors, engineers, designers, you guys and folks typically are really good at analyzing the data, tweaking the data, getting it to what you want it to do. And typically not real interested, although we're seeing some buy drones from us today, but don't want to get into the drone business, don't want to go get the Part 107 that the FAA requires, et cetera, and have the insurance and the risk that goes with that. The flights are extremely precise. Like I said, we'll get down to, if we don't use ground control, it'll be within a foot accuracy. If we're using ground control, typically it's sub-centimeter type accuracy with either photogrammetry or LiDAR. And then back up here, we export the data. Any kind of GIS platform is typically A-OK. We see a lot of AutoCAD, Esri, so forth, and you all import the data. You take it and plug it into your GIS platforms and AutoCAD and do stuff with it. Typically, we're working with like the 500 acres we did this week was 2 days time. Actually, it was about a day and a half, but it took us another half a day for data uploads, and we still have a lot more to do today. We're very cost effective. We're using inexpensive drones as opposed to the old way of doing things. Might be a helicopter or fixed wing, or just hiking the land. We are licensed, insured, and specialize in nothing but drones. That's our focus. And typically, Most of the folks that own the ditches and others are interested in the water rights and other things. I hope I'm not overstepping my boundaries there. But the bottom line to this is we want a partnership with you and work very closely with you, whether it's in selling drones, working with you around what's the right drone, to doing the service for you, or training you, etc. Finally, typical workflow that we use with a customer, we'll sit down and understand what is the drone and sensor that's required. Is it LiDAR, thermal, multispectral? We have all access to all of those. Then how are we going to capture the data? Is it a manual flight? Is it using drone deploy or Pix4D capture? Or in the Mount Sniffles project, we used a software package called Maps Made Easy or Map Pilot. And then how are we going to process the data? What are we going to do with it? Is it just a simple marketing video and a few photos? Or are we doing 1,600 acres of land and vegetation analysis and so forth, or tunnel scans and so forth? That's some of the projects that we've done. And then where do we draw the line in terms of who's going to analyze it? Is it us? With Rick Cross, there were some conversations around. And with Karis Oil and Gas, do you want us to analyze, is there oil and gas seeping out of the truck, or do you guys want to do that? So those are conversations that we typically have as we go through the process. But it's not just a team of folks that fire up the drones and go out there and do flights and take some pretty pictures. There's a lot more that goes into it that we work through. I said the last slide, it's actually, I lied just a little bit. I think it's the third to the last slide, but the last two were just any questions and so forth. But we do have a solution around mounting your air defense if you have dams. I'm seeing some stuff in social media pop up from other drone pilots that U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is shutting drones down over dams, which is a good thing to protect the critical infrastructure that we have, and loss of life that could come with that from nefarious people. So if you have critical infrastructure, this is another product that we do have. It uses radio frequencies to detect where the operator is, where the drone is, and then take some type of action, whether it be simple send a security guard out, or close blinds, send off a smoke bomb. There's all kinds of things that can happen to protect your assets and your company and business that's out there. So please feel free to contact us. That was a picture, by the way, the backdrop that we actually took of Needle Rock out towards Crawford. Great part of the country. If you haven't been out there, it's absolutely stunning. That's kind of where I was this week with the Delta Colorado project down towards Montrose, but absolutely beautiful, beautiful area. Call us for a free assessment. We love to talk to you and get to know you and see if we can help in any way. And like I said, we think drones and water do mix, part 2. Amber, Manny, is there any questions out there?
We do have a few questions, so I'll start from the top. Manny asks, can you fly in a 12-inch pipe?
A 12-inch pipe. Not with that drone. There are some that are out there that I could probably rent to do it. It's called an Helios 2. Have to measure it, but yeah, and it's kind of hard to fly, but yes, there could be. And they're all, by the way, I didn't comment on that, but the Helios and that digital airless drone, both of those are GPS denied. So they're designed for areas like that are GPS denied.
Perfect. Next question. Paul says, if I understand correctly, most drone flying is done by the operator having the drone in sight. Is it likely that line of sight flying will no longer be necessary in the future?
I would say yes. And the FAA is actually providing a few, very few, I have not applied yet, what are called BVLOS, or Beyond Visual Line of Sight waivers, to folks like Burlington Northern Railroad right now to inspect rail lines and fly autonomously with that. I believe law enforcement, that's critical for law enforcement as well. There's actually a new drone that just came out called an M300 that will allow you to fly to a certain point, have another person stationed, 2 miles down the road, and be able to have that controller or have that person with another controller pick up that drone and then fly it another 2 miles, kind of like handoffs along the way. Beyond visual line of sight is going to become critical with that as well. And there was a waiver granted this week for Skydio 2, which we just added to the fleet. Our first Skydio 2, it's an American-made drone, which is critical because 90% of all drones that have been made in China. And there's a lot of Department of Interior, DOD, people that are shutting down some of the Chinese-made drones for the same reason they're shutting down Huawei, and others have some heartburn with that. But there was a company called Skydio 2 working with the North Carolina Department of Transportation that got a beyond visual line of sight to do inspection under bridges just this week. And I intend to do something similar with the Skydio 2. We also plan to use it for looking for undetonated munitions. We get quite a few engineers. We've got a particular engineering company that we work with that does a lot of work with U.S. Army Corps and Bureau of Reclamation, Land Reclamation, trying to detect undetonated munitions and do work around that. So that's important to have an American-made drone with that, and the Skydio 2 will come in handy for that. It's an amazing drone, by the way. The artificial intelligence that it has to fly and not hit things, and the sensors on it is beyond belief. So I look forward to showing you that maybe next time that we all get together face to face.
Absolutely, that sounds really neat. Our next question comes from Kirk. He was wondering if Craig could explain the analysis used to decide when a drone survey of a tunnel is better than a robot or a man.
Craig Ullman or me? I don't know if Craig's on.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. So yeah, we wanted to get a map of the inside of the tunnel. We had some basic survey data, and so we approached Chuck to see if we could try to get a drone to essentially fly through the tunnel and map the tunnel in 3 dimensions as it went through. But it turned out the LiDAR equipment, I mean, Chuck, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was just too heavy for the drone to carry through the tunnel and still get the accuracy that we wanted. And so they actually, it was a man-supported survey using a 3-dimensional scanner, so it's still collecting the LiDAR data, but it was then set up repeatedly throughout the tunnel to essentially build a 3D map of the tube that is the tunnel.
I was with Russell, Craig. I didn't know you were on the call here. I was with Russell the past 2 days again, so he said to tell you hi.
All right. Yeah, tell him I said hi as well. Yeah, and what he showed you on that video, that was the nice part of the tunnel. It gets significantly worse.
I should have fast forwarded. You're right. That was a fun project, Greg. I must admit, sitting there, I've never been so peaceful in all my life. Sitting there in a pitch black tunnel with bats above me and snakes below me. That was and water that was standing water. We got a kick out of that. We saw Chris. I don't know if you heard that, but we saw Chris Crawford this week. He pulled us into this other project down in Delta. So it was nice to see him again and work with him. He's such a great guy and so helpful.
Thank you, Craig. I appreciate that.
I think I'd like to add one more thing on that tunnel. I think the question asked, could a robot do that? In sort of wasn't quite like that, but the answer is no. There's no way a robot could go across the rocks on what we dealt with inside of there. As well, initially we were going to use that digital airless drone to fly inside there. The dust it would have kicked up, it would have made the static scanning, the LiDAR scanning almost impossible because of the amount of dust that the drone would have kicked up. It's got a huge draft in it, that huge ducts that would have created some problems for us.
That's fascinating and scary. I would not want to go through a tunnel like that, even if we're larger. Jennifer asks, how do you monitor change over time to show irrigation system show how irrigation system improvements are effective?
I think there's a couple of answers to that, but I'd look for maybe Craig to help me with this one too. But if we were to look and if the question is around irrigation and farming, and there's ways to do it. If it's a large, whoops. Okay. If it's a multi, hundreds of acres farm, we could use photogrammetry or multispectral cameras or sensors, fly the farm, say, 1 year or one part of the growing season, and provide the results as a baseline, and then fly again in 3 months time or 6 months time, whatever the right cadence is for that. Provide similar type of results. You'll be able to see, a lot of water, pests, chemicals, weeds. I actually work closely with a guy out of Kansas City that's a specialist in turf that is switched over to the drone business, and he's targeting golf courses, but using multispectral drones and thermal drones, he and I work together to provide data like that. So it's really, what do you want to see and what is the right cadence that you want to see it with? There's all kinds of things you can do with it. Whether, like I said, weeds, pests, water, irrigation, those kind of things all pop out relatively easily once we get into a rhythm.
Perfect. Don asks, would it be possible to share an estimate on the cost for surveying a ditch system, perhaps by mile?
Sure. I mean, it's pretty simple. Typically for photogrammetry, we're $175 an hour for flight times, and then whatever data processing there is to go beyond that. LiDAR in a day's time typically is about $1,500 to fly photogrammetry or photos and marketing videos. If we're using LiDAR, it's typically around $12,000 for a LiDAR day of LiDAR, not LiDAR itself by hour, but typically the past couple of days it's been about $12,000 to do the LiDAR per day, and then multispectral somewhere in between there, and thermals somewhere in between there. So low end $1,500 a day, high end $12,000, and then somewhere in between thermal and multispectral $5,000 to $6,000 per day. And it really, miles, if you've got, really just call us, I guess, is the best answer there. Is we'll give you a free assessment, and if it's something you want to work with us on, we'll put together a statement of work and show you exactly what we're doing. Typically the process goes, we look for an address or lat longs or KMZ or something like that to give us the information that we need for the area that you want to focus on, and then we can provide the statement of work from there. So hopefully that answered the question. I know it was a little bit vague, but $175 an hour up to $12,000 a day.
Perfect. Don said it helped, so thank you.
Okay.
Are there any other questions by anybody else who is on, or any last words from you, Chuck?
No, I just appreciate the business that you all have awarded us, and thank you for the partnership. It's been really good. And Craig, particularly thank you to you and the Applegate Group for your help. This is fascinating technology, not life-changing, but it can help in terms of life and safety and risk and other things. So I think it's going to continue to grow by the industry metrics, and as you guys have continued to award me business, it obviously is having some meaningful impact on people, and we thank you for that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for being a part of DARCA and for sponsoring us and for always giving us such fantastic presentations that is not only really fun to look at and watch, but is also beneficial to the members. So we appreciate you as well. Thanks, Chuck.
Good. Thank you, Amber. Bye, Mandy. See you, Craig. I can't see everybody else that's on there. I've got it still in presentation mode. So thank you. Have a great day and great weekend.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.